Okay, this will be Unit 9 Review Part 2. We'll start down here with problem number 5. What we have here is our function f of x, which is our parent function, and it has been transformed to g of x. So if you notice, all they did was they took the vertex and they moved it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. So the transformation is that it shifted down 5 units. For number 6, we have to show the correct substitution for this equation using the quadratic formula. So the first thing we need to do is take the 4x squared equals 16x plus 16 and put everything onto one side. So I'm going to go ahead and move all these things over to the left. So I'm going to get rid of the 16x first. So 4x squared minus 16x equals 16. Now I'll get rid of the 16. 4x squared minus 16x minus 16 equals 0. You cannot use the quadratic formula until your function is set equal to 0. Now I can identify my a, which is 4, b, which is negative 16, and c, which is also negative 16. So now we're just going to have to show the substitution. So we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So here is b. b is a negative 16, so a negative 16 goes in here. This is b. A negative 16 goes there. A is 4, c is negative 16, and then again a is 4. And there's your substitution into the quadratic formula. We do not need to solve this at this time. They just ask for the substitution. So let's move on to the back for problem number 7. In this case, we are going to need to solve. So the first thing we're going to do is look and see if it's equal to 0. And sure enough, that quadratic equation we have equal to 0. So we can just go ahead and start identifying a, b, and c. A is 4. B is 5, C is negative 6. So we're going to go x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So now we're going to substitute negative b plus or minus b, the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So now my first simplification is to take what's inside or underneath the radical and just simplify that. So I have negative b plus or minus the square root of some numbers. So go to my calculator. We're going to type it exactly as it is under the radical. 5 squared minus 4 times 4 in parentheses times negative 6 in parentheses, and that gives us 121. So this is the square root of 121, and that's all over 2 times 4, which is 8. Split this up into two fractions. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 121 over 8. Or x is going to equal negative 5 minus the square root of 121 all over 8. Again, we will go back to the calculator, and we need a fraction. So we do alpha y equals to get our skeleton for a fraction. On top, we put negative 5 plus, and to get square root, we use the second and the x squared key, and then type 121 underneath there. Arrow down, type your 8. Hit enter. And it will tell us that x is equal to 3 over 4. Or, and we have to do it again, so I'm just going to do second enter so that I can then edit by just changing the plus to a subtract and hit enter. And this time I get a nice pretty number, x equals negative 2. So my solutions are x equals 3/4 or x equals -2. Okay, the graph of this function is transformed to create this graph. Describe this transformation. The transformation is happening inside parentheses, so it is a horizontal change. Remember, it's inside opposite. Inside we see a +6, so that means the change is actually a -6. So this one will shift. A negative is going to be moving to the left 6 units. Okay, so this is part 2. This has been problems 5, 6, 7, and 8, and in part 3 we will go through 9 and 10.